This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans! It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Welcome to our new feature, Famous Feud Focus, where we take an in-depth look at a legendary wrestling feud. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at how the Freebirds blinded the Junkyard Dog and paid the price. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. In 1980, wrestling fans in Mid-South watched in horror as the unthinkable happened. Junkyard Dog was blinded by the Freebirds, but this wasn't just another feud. This was war, and JYD's fight for payback would become one of the most unforgettable storylines in wrestling history, and a career-making moment for everyone involved. Bill Watts' big dream, Mid-South Wrestling. The story of the Junkyard Dog versus the fabulous Freebirds began when wrestler and booker Bill Watts launched his own promotion. According to wrestling historian Tim Hornbaker, Watts broke from McGurk's office and established Mid-South Sports Incorporated, retaining ties to the NWA, but without formal membership in the alliance. He continued promoting in Louisiana and Mississippi, leaving McGurk with his original three states, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. With a wrestling career dating back to the early 1960s, Watts had a firm grasp on pro wrestling's dynamics in the ring. The former pro football player had also studied booking under promoter Eddie Graham, often considered one of wrestling's best bookers, and was ready to incorporate his knowledge into building his own successful promotion. Watts saw McGurk's territory bring in big box office thanks to promoting Superdome extravaganza shows at New Orleans Superdome Stadium, the home of the long-suffering NFL franchise, the New Orleans Saints. Watts knew what attracted fans to the shows, and he began finding a babyface to carry his new promotion. Enter the Junkyard Dog. The story of the Junkyard Dog's, aka Sylvester Ritter, rise to superstardom is full of conflicting stories. While the JYD's legendary feud with the Freebirds would make them into four of wrestling's biggest stars at the time, how the Dog got there isn't as clear as it's often been written about. Conventional wisdom has it that promoter Bill Watts wanted a black babyface wrestler and chose Sylvester Ritter, renaming him the Junkyard Dog from a lyric in Jim Croce's song, Bad Bad Leroy Brown. Greg Klein writes in his biography of the Junkyard Dog that Ernie Ladd, who was a wrestler and booker, approached the Cowboy about the success he'd had booking black wrestler Ray Candy as his top babyface. When they got together and began to work on booking ideas, they both knew enough about the demographics of their region and their biggest city. Ladd's insistence on pushing Ray Candy as the black babyface beating the hated Ernie Ladd didn't just pay off with one record Superdome crowd. It confirmed for both men that they needed a black babyface to continue to draw big crowds into the future. It was a business decision. Both Ladd and Watts recognized the importance of a black babyface to lead their company. Whether the Junkyard Dog was sought out for this specific role depends on who you believe. Wrestling lore has it that Jake Roberts, who had worked with Sylvester in Stampede Wrestling, recommended him to Bill Watts. Watts claims he saw something special in Ritter, despite Sylvester's lack of experience. As Watts recalls in his memoir, The Cowboy and the Cross, "When he got to me, he was still pretty green. Really, JYD was always limited in what he could do in the ring, so initially it was really important that we book him with people who could work with him, emphasize his strong suits, and build up his self-confidence. We didn't need anyone tearing him down or trying to show up his weaknesses. I could tell he would become a star. He just had that inner glow." Like many stories in pro wrestling, accounts differ. According to former Mid-South booker and veteran wrestler Buck Robley, Watts wasn't impressed with the Dog. He couldn't work, he couldn't do anything, but he had a lot of charisma. Watts owned the company and he said, "Fire him." I said, "No, I'm not going to fire him. He's got a lot of charisma. I think I can make money with him." So that's how I got him started. While we don't know who lobbied for the Dog to stay, we do know that the JYD was booked differently than other wrestlers. The Dog worked in 2 to 3 minute matches, quickly defeating opponents while the Cowboy reminded fans that JYD wasn't getting paid by the hour. It was a successful formula that reflected savvy promoters' abilities to accent wrestlers' strengths and hide their weaknesses. The Junkyard Dog epitomized the idea of a charismatic wrestler who didn't have to be a mat technician to get over, if he was protected. According to fellow wrestler Gene Pettit, aka Cousin Luke, he was a 6-minute man. If he went past that, he didn't know what to do. He was over like $1 million. Watts was smart enough to know that you couldn't go past 6 or 7 minutes with him because, while physically he could do it, he didn't really know what to do. Indeed, Watts nearly fired wrestler and booker Ernie Ladd when the Big Cat booked the JYD into a 20-minute time limit draw against the Super Destroyer, aka Bill Irwin. Ladd reported to Watts that the dog was blown up after the match, telling Watts he needed to fire the dog. Instead, Watts told Ladd he was fired. The dog wasn't built for long matches, and Watts threatened ensured this didn't happen again. A star is born. Watts booked the Junkyard Dog to win, and win big. By early 1980, the dog had won the Louisiana Championship and the Mississippi Championship, billed as the first wrestler to hold both titles simultaneously. In addition, the JYD captured the Mid-South Tag Team Championship with Buck Robley. Of course, none of this would have mattered if the fans hadn't taken a liking to the dog. That wasn't a problem because Mid-South wrestling fans immediately embraced their new hero. Bill Watts had taken a calculated risk, and it had paid off, quickly turning the Junkyard Dog into a rising star. Now it was time to book him against a worthy opponent, or in this case, a worthy group of heels. Fighting the Freebirds. Bill Watts had an eye for talent, something proven when he brought in Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy into Mid-South. While Watts was unimpressed with Hayes' work in the ring, he was dazzled by Gordy's ability, size, and look, and confident that Hayes, who was a good talker, could earn his keep by being Gordy's mouthpiece. Watts then added veteran wrestler Buddy Roberts to the group. Roberts, best known at the time as one half of the Hollywood Blondes, along with Jerry Brown in the 1970s, was considered a moderating force for the young wrestlers. Given that Roberts earned the nickname Jack from Hayes for his love of Jack Daniel's whiskey, that's all you need to know about what a moderating force Roberts became. Freebirds were a classic combo whose success has been broken down into an oft-repeated formula that Gordy was the team's fantastic worker, Hayes was their talker, and Roberts was a punching bag who took the falls for the group and their ring general. As simplistic as that might sound, it sums up the basic principles that made the group so successful. Other elements, including their use of entrance music, Leonard Skinner's Freebird, charisma, and natural ability to draw heel heat, would further elevate the trio, as would the later creation of the Freebird rule, where any two of the 3 Freebirds could defend the tag team championship. Watts launched a feud between the Junkyard Dog and the Freebirds, with the conniving heels cheating their way to victories over the dog, including Terry Gordy beating him for the Louisiana Championship. The JYD didn't slow down though, as he teamed up with Buck Robley, beating the Birds for the Mid-South Tag Team Championship. The teams continued battling through 1980 as Watts set things up for what he hoped would be his next mega money match. A day of infamy. Things continued simmering until Watts turned up the heat with a hair versus hair match between JYD and Buck Robley against the Freebirds Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts. Watts devised an angle to get sympathy for the dog and incredible heat on the fabulous Freebirds. However, he knew he had to be careful with how he booked the angle, or risk destroying the credibility he always relied on with his booking. Robley and the dog won the match, but after the bout, Michael Hayes attacked the Junkyard Dog with a hair removal cream, getting it into the dog's eyes. According to Watts, I came up with the idea of having a hair match, where the loser would lose his hair via this hair removal potion at ringside. In the process, they would get the stuff in JYD's eyes. Although it would be on purpose, we now had some degree of reasonable doubt. As it was shown, the Freebirds blinded JYD on purpose, but they were able to claim that it was an accident. We created just enough doubt to let them plead their case and deny that it was an intentional act. Jim Ross praises the angle in his first memoir, Slobberknocker, noting how the villainous Freebirds' plausible deniability allowed them to avoid punishment from Mid-South officials. That led to JYD's friends trying to get revenge, but as Ross remembers, JYD's only justice would come when his friends took on the Freebirds in bouts that drew thousands of fans, hoping to see JYD's friends exact revenge on his behalf. Of course, no one was able to revenge him, so months later, Dog himself came back for a match. Bill Watts spared no effort or expense to sell the Junkyard Dog's injury, and the idea the beloved wrestler's career was over. To sell the injury, Watts paid JYD to stay home. Video segments were filmed where he, the Junkyard Dog, went to malls and supermarkets trying to live life as a blind man. When JYD's daughter LaToya was born, Watts used the coincidence for increased heat, filming an interview with JYD in which he lamented not being able to see his baby being born. Fan sympathy was unbelievable, and the animosity towards the Freebirds was toxic. According to Klein, fans even sent money to Mid-South Wrestling on the Dog's behalf, doing their part to help him out. Hayes continued denying any responsibility, but savvy fans could read through the lines of his promos and recognize he was proud of what had happened. On at least one occasion, a fan decided to get revenge for the Dog. The Junkyard Dog appeared on TV for what was billed as a farewell address to his fans, but the fabulous Freebirds crashed the party. That is until a fan jumped into the ring with a gun and pointed it directly at Hayes. "Don't worry, Dog, I'm covering you," he yelled. The Freebirds were frozen. JYD, selling being blind, couldn't even react. Fortunately, security stopped the fan before anyone was hurt. Nonetheless, the incident served as a reminder of how hot the feud was and how Watts, the Junkyard Dog, and the fabulous Freebirds had built up the storyline. Now, it was time to capitalize on the fans' interest in the feud. The JYD's thirst for vengeance would lead to one of the Territory era's most successful cards. While the Junkyard Dog was eager for revenge, how could a sightless wrestler hope to compete in the ring? Fans found out when the Junkyard Dog challenged Michael Hayes to a dog collar match. The two wrestlers would be held together by a chain, ensuring no one could escape, and that their opponent was within their grasp. Hayes accepted the challenge, undoubtedly confident in his ability to trounce a blind opponent. Showdown in the Superdome. On August 2nd, 1980, 28,000 fans paid an estimated $183,000 to witness the Dog's quest for payback. Mid-South Wrestling, and Tri-State Wrestling before, had used the Louisiana Superdome's greater seating capacity to capitalize on fiery feuds. As big as the match was, Watts made sure he had many other marquee bouts on the card, including a double bull rope match between the team of Dusty Rhodes and Buck Robley and the Birds Terry Gordy and Buddy Roberts. In addition, WWF talents Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant duked it out on the card. See our video, Andre the Giant vs. Hulk Hogan, The Early Years, Part 2, for more information. Even sightless, the Junkyard Dog proved too much for Hayes to deal with, and with a steel cage keeping Hayes' allies from interfering, the JYD triumphed, defeating Hayes and getting some of the revenge he'd sought. Given the match's success, Watts booked the two in other venues along with subsequent grudge matches, including a Jim Bowie death match between the Dog and Hayes. A star-making match. The JYD vs. Freebirds feud elevated all four men, with the Dog's gutsy triumph over Michael Hayes solidifying his role as the area's resident superhero. It also put the Freebirds on the map, a classic example of the whole proving greater than the sum of its parts. The Birds would eventually be run out of the territory, courtesy of dropping a loser leaves town match against the Dog, Terry Orndorff, and Bill Watts. Hayes, Gordy, and Roberts worked in Georgia Championship Wrestling next to tremendous acclaim before finding their greatest success in world-class championship wrestling during their feud with the Von Erichs. The Junkyard Dog became Bill Watts' biggest babyface, remaining in Mid-South until 1984, when he walked out on the promotion to join the WWF. Do you remember the legendary JYD vs. Freebirds feud and the hot angle that launched it? What other feuds would you like to see covered? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and let us know if there are any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.